Hey guys, welcome to this video where I'm going to be talking about a recent experience I had in Australia on the Pittwater Summer School 2023 run by the Australian Architecture Foundation, and it was the first one back back in the running since the pandemic, so quite a significant thing. But yeah, for those that don't know, the Pittwater Summer School is run by a group of five really renowned architects in Australia who've taken it upon themselves to dedicate their time and attention towards helping to educate the next generation of young architects and designers about the importance of place, understanding place, nature, understanding the layers of a place, and how an architecture can come to be in a way that is organic and beautiful, and has minimal impact on the natural environment around it, and works with the elements and many other things. But yeah, I thought I'd just put this presentation together just to give an insight into that experience. If you're considering going on it yourself, I'm going to give my observations, but yeah, I mean the week-long immersive experience is in a place called the Ku-ring-gai National Park, which is north of Sydney. This is a map of the Sydney area. You can see the harbour stretching into the city below the markings of the national park. And what's fascinating about Sydney and many other Australian cities is their close proximity to the ocean, and sharing that boundary, but then also being immersed in what they might call the bush or jungle or rainforest that wraps around these urban areas. So they're really interesting cities that you don't really find of the like in places like Europe or where I'm from. And yeah, I mean, I was the lucky one. I was the only foreign student to make the pilgrimage from England to Australia to spend a week with these guys, and this is an example of how we'd spend our day. And we would all wake up at 5:30 in the morning, staying at the hostel, the YHA hostel in Pittwater. Pittwater is the area in which this is known, and the national park is a short boat ride away across the water into the preserved place. And this is a point, Woody's Point. We'd come here every morning, and we would start our day by sketching and drawing, learning about the light, how it changes throughout the hours, studying how it has an effect on the trees and the vegetation, looking more closely at those trees and naturally formed formations to try and understand a little bit about how they came to be, how nature might have started to shape them over the years, the direction of the wind and the sun, and taking into consideration all of the things that might shape a place, not and that isn't affected by humans in that sense. And I think this is one of the essences and one of the key lessons that we all got to learn about on this course, the importance of understanding how a place has come to be. I'll try not to repeat myself, but yeah, fascinating lessons. And yeah, we'd all start the day in this almost meditative mode, looking out into this horizon and drawing, gathering observations and research and information and thoughts and feelings about how we experienced this landscape, and we'd all bring it together and talk about what we'd found. And I love this particular moment where you could stand on this point looking out as the sun was rising, and the silhouettes of the trees create a really striking pattern across the screen of your eyes, and the serenity of the water, which is protected by the surrounding hills, when you've got the much more lively Pacific Ocean on the other side of the hills in the distance. Yeah, this is the view from our hostel, the YHA, and just to give a bit more context into some of what we were, into some of the work that we were doing, which was reimagining what that hostel could look like, and specifically focusing on the entrance into the hostel. This was a rainy morning where we weren't able to get down to the site, but still, nonetheless, we'd all be scattered across the veranda that wrapped around the hostel, overlooking this scene and drawing. And I think in this way, our drawings became a lot more expanded, and our site of view was taken from a much further back point. We weren't getting so close up, but for me, I spent quite a good chunk of time just studying how the different gradients of the hills changed as they got further and further away. So I was playing with lots of like line weights and experimenting with that through the use of charcoal, and just seeing that how the mist rolled in from the east across from the Pacific, and how it created this really atmospheric moment. And getting close up on the other side, looking at the trees, the spotted gum tree, which was one of the dominant species of trees in the area. Being someone from England, I wasn't particularly familiar with this species of tree, but they're incredibly tall, lean species of tree with this, as the name might suggest, a spotted texture on that really defines a lot of what Pittwater is in the wider Australian area, and understanding why some trees are how they are, and what events might have taken place. This was a sculptural remnant of a tree that was located just outside the YHA hostel, on a pathway that leads you down to Woody's Point. And I was always struck by the formation of this, and wondered why was it like this? Is this a case of a forest fire? Is this nature's doing? I just thought it was really beautiful. Another moment of a spotted gum tree expanding up into the sky. And yeah, so as the day grew on after breakfast, we would gather together as groups, and we would spend the day working together in our groups, observing, drawing, and then as the week went on, putting together and building proposals, models, plans, sections, elevations, some of the more technical resolutions to understanding how a project might be and how it might feel and be experienced. But we'd also engage in lots of group discussions and listen to Peter and Richard, who, well, you can see Peter sat here in the blue shirt, talking to us about an experience that he has had, or some information about the place. And this was a pretty regular occurrence throughout the week, both in small scale within our groups, and also as a much larger group and cohort coming together. And that was taken just before we set off on a long hike up the ridgeline of the hill that we were situated on. I particularly like this scene. It shows the guys looking out towards the Pacific Ocean. We were at one of the highest points in the national park, which had a fantastic view, and we're with a guide, a very intelligent, educated man who's immersed himself within learning about the area, and he gave us all kinds of information, particularly about the importance of understanding the layers of a place. So understanding how you got all these different types of layers that are below our feet, above us, and starting to make us think about how we should consider this much wider area as a room in itself, and not just a park. Really interesting. This is Richard talking to one of the students, again along these lines, as we walk up towards that point along the ridge, educating the students on the impacts of nature on some of the trees, and how large formations of boulders might have ended up there over the course of years, and stopping at moments to talk and observe and learn about nature. coming back, and we'd always continue talking. There's a lot of talking, but I think that was one of the other things I took away from the experience, was the importance of sharing ideas and stories. And I think Richard and Peter were particularly good storytellers. They had a wealth of experience, and they never failed to engage us at times throughout the week, when they would tell us all about their personal experiences in this place and other places. And I think in this moment I was asking Richard how, we're here in this rural area, this natural landscape, but for me, coming from England, I spend a lot of my time in educational systems and in practice where you're dealing with urban areas and really quite condensed, congested areas. And I wanted to understand a little bit more about how you could take the lessons we're learning here and how you could bring it into areas that aren't naturally made and have been very, very much shaped by the influence of people. And he was able to give me really good insight into that. And then at the start of the working process, we had an initial review, which was effectively a culmination of all of our ideas and observations that we'd come together and put together in a form of a small presentation as a group, and showed Richard and Peter how we'd interpreted the place so far. And this was a group that did particularly well. They produced this really lovely drawing that opened up like a Chinese scroll, which told the story of how they've experienced Pittwater so far. And all the groups did really, really well at this point. But the emphasis was definitely on research and observation. There was no need for a technical resolution at this point or any form of architectural idea. And the groups did really well. And then in the evenings we would gather again together and listen to the two talk about their experiences in their careers and in the industry. Peter gave a talk about what his practice are getting up to and some of the works that they've been doing, and he would go into depth and talk about the real driving factors that make some of his projects what they are. And Richard would give talks about drawing and the importance of maintaining that as an essential skill for architects and young designers coming into the field. And he would talk at length about how he would draw places, and he encouraged people to when you see something and it interests you, to pick up a pencil or a stick of charcoal or whatever you got and just draw it. It doesn't have to be any good. You can it's just a depiction of what you see, but what it does is it captures what you're seeing and what you're interested in, and it's essential, and it's something that all architects and designers should be really embedding within their practice. Moments of serenity on other walks throughout the week. This was a particularly lovely spot where the water that they had gathered across this dam was totally drinkable, and it'd been here for ages. And I definitely tried some, and it was the most cleansing, clear, and most tasty water I've ever had in my life. And we would also visit really renowned pieces of architecture. This is Levet Bay by Richard himself. This is his personal home, which we all had the pleasure of getting to visit and spending some time in, when him and his wife would talk about the story of the building and how it came to be designed in this incredibly open, welcoming way to the natural elements around it. It's a building that has these large overhanging roof eaves that act as natural shades over the veranda, made out of lightweight corrugated aluminium or copper, or a type of easily accessible, often used in agricultural buildings in England, sheets, which is both lightweight and very durable, and has lots of different properties which can be used in an ad hoc way, just like this. This is one of the outbuildings that welcomed you into the site. And when we first got here, I couldn't quite believe where we were, really. It felt like we were in some kind of dystopian space that had come straight out of the film Wall-E that was made by Pixar. Really informal ways of living, open to nature, welcoming in nature, not scared of the elements. I think that is so important, and it's a way of living and way of thinking that not everyone will get behind. But for me personally, being interested in designing in warmer climates and how you can design a building that functions in a way that is incredibly pleasurable and joyful to experience when in a hot place, I think is about bringing in that quality of the heat and embracing that. I mean, yeah, this was the front of the house, and you can start to see the different platforms that the building is built on. It was separated out into different parts, so you'd have like the bathroom across the site with the toilet, and then you'd have also a small studio and a garage, and you had all these different little random ad hoc buildings that were created in this way. Just note the ventilation detail at the top of the roof. Really, really interesting. The roof structure. Yeah. It's a building that you don't know it's there, honestly, when you're around the site. And I think that's quite telling of the work of Peter and Richard and Glenn Murcott as well, who was one of the main inspirations for me to take this leap and come here for this period of time. This is an example of how a material can be used in a different way. This is a sheet of corrugated metal and with a simple handle attached to it. And because of the properties, the metal is easily bendable. So this is a door that you could open and shut just by pulling and pushing like any other door. But without the use of a hinge, you just have this wall, which is constructed out of this metal sheet that you can effectively fold back and bend back to allow yourself entryway into the building behind it. And it's just a fantastic small example of many that were on this site about how you can use these materials in different ways. And then we'd go back to the site and we'd get back to the YHA hostel and get back into our groups. And as we were getting closer towards producing a proposal to how to change the hostel, based off all of our observations and all of our drawings and information that we'd gathered and the totally immersive experience that we'd had thus far, we'd work late into the nights and we'd just be drawing, making models, showing our ideas, developing our ideas. This is one example with our head torches on. Really lovely experience. Collaborative, team working. These are some of the shaping things that really helped bring the projects along. And we ended the week by showing our work. This is Will and myself with our group talking about our proposal alongside all the other groups that took turns in showing what they'd come up with. And we'd also presented to the managers of the site who had a lot of requirements into ways that they wanted to change the way that the site was being used, and really thinking strategically about what could be done. And it wasn't just our group, it was other groups. Everyone did, I thought, really, really well, considering we were only there for a week and we didn't know each other. The way that we all came together was really amazing. And we also only had basic drawing equipment and basic paper and really nothing fancy, but what it did was it allowed our ideas and observations to really shine through. This is another group that I thought did really, really well. I loved their model that they made, just using round pieces of bark and just a singular grey board material, and really went into detail. Very well done. This was an extract from our project and our proposal. It's a section through our site, and it zooms in a little bit more into what we were thinking. And I think a lot of our proposal was about opening up the kitchen, which is the main building we see in elevation with the corrugated sheet roofing. And by doing so, we would introduce a kind of lightweight roof structure that expanded out towards the fire pits, which is towards the left, and where you got the fire pit, which became a symbol of our arrival, which we really wanted to play with. That sense of entry and welcoming, togetherness and community, which we all thought was really quite prominent within our experience there. We thought we could bring in a level of like lightweight landscaping, that you could start to introduce naturally shaped seats and like seating arrangements around an informal fire pit between two spotted gum trees that really opened up the experience of cooking and eating, and really tried to take away from the overused veranda and make sure that people were starting to use this part of the site in a more practical and making use of the fantastic views around. And yeah, finishing off the week in the only real way possible. In reality, if you go on this experience in this week, you'll be doing this every day. The water's perfect for swimming in. And yeah, we just ended the week by just spending time celebrating together, enjoying each other's company. And really, that is the most important thing. So I think for me, coming from so far away, and not expecting either to be the only one who'd come from really far away. I mean, like, there were people that got planes from one part of Australia to here, but I don't know. I mean, I came from, like, it took me like 48 hours to get here. It was a long way away, and but it was like totally worth it, because I made such great friends. And this is us back at Woody's Point, where we started off the presentation. Yeah, just thinking and talking and just laughing, and really, this was the best thing for me about the week. The people that I got to spend it with. And yeah, if you're considering coming onto this course, I'd highly recommend it, because if nothing else, you'll just have a fantastic week of experience and learning and growing, but you'll make really, really great friends and learn from so many different interesting people along the way. And just like that, they've all gone back to their various jobs and universities in Australia, and I've come back here, and yeah, I've been reflecting on this time a lot. But yeah, just my final thoughts on the course. If you're a young budding architecture student, or someone who's just interested in place, I think, and nature, I would highly recommend coming on this course. It was without doubt probably the best thing I've ever done in my life. And I know that's quite a bold statement, and I'm not one to shy away from putting myself in the deep end, and oftentimes not being able to swim, but that's okay, because that's who I am. I won't shy away from that. And this experience was no different. Overnight, deciding to come on to this course and be with these people and learn ultimately about what it takes to build in nature and warmer climates, and all of what is required to make that happen and be successful and regenerative as well. It's a fantastic experience that I think you need to go on and attempt to be on. And if not this one, there are other different courses run by the Australian Architecture Foundation, such as the Glenn Murcott course, which I think is designed for slightly more experienced professionals. But yeah, fantastic. Love every single moment. And yeah, I would do it again in a heartbeat. So thank you again for listening, and I will see you in the next video.